a fear of either putting more color, more water, or no water at all. The answer to that is you just paint, because you'll never experience the beauty and uniqueness of watercolor if you don't really dip your brush onto water, because watercolor needs water. That's one. The other thing about maybe not just watercolor, but art in general.
Welcome back. If you've been watching this series of interviews with watercolor artists and people involved in the watercolor circles, I'm super excited to share my next guest is my good friend Ethel. If you are on Instagram or the Facebook, Ethel is the one that reads the comments. She also helps with Daniel Smith's website, which is amazing. So, without any further ado, and we don't want to hear everything about me, we want to know more about Ethel. Like I said in this series, you're getting to know other artists and what they do. So, hi, Ethel.
Hi,
Could
Gabrielle.
you
Good to
could
see you.
you tell
Always good
us
to see
a
you.
little bit about you and what it is that you do?
Sure. So first, I want to say thank you first to you, Gabrielle, for inviting me. It's an honor to be here with a fellow watercolorist and a fellow Daniel Smith family. So I'm from the Philippines and based in the Philippines. So I maybe one of the since we are in a watercolor show, um, how did I get connected with watercolor? Honestly, I did not think that I could paint, that I'll be able to grab a brush and then paint. But I'm married to an artist, Dino Pajao, who's also a brand ambassador of Daniel Smith. But it took me 13 years, Gabrielle, to finally pick up the brush and try painting. Why? There's only one reason. I always feel I back then I felt overwhelmed seeing someone paint, much more me getting into action. Um, One particular characteristic about watercolor that draw me and put me in this journey is its transparency. And whenever you see water embracing color, to me the effect looks like a dance. That to me is like magical. And since then, I couldn't stop playing with my brush and colors and just simply exploring colors. And for someone who comes from the tropical side of the world, from the Philippines, there's so many flowers around me. But I was particularly interested on flowers by the roadside. So that's like my beginning, my start to the journey of watercolor. I have a degree on communications. I worked my background career-wise. I worked for almost 20 years in an international development aid agency, working with communities, working with and for communities that need help. But and we lived in Singapore for around 13 years. We decided to come home. We decided to move back to Philippines after 13 years. And the very reason is we realized that both husband and I wanted to be actively part of the community in the Philippines through arts. So that's why we're here. Yeah.
That's so good. I think now people are gonna want to even stick around more and hear your beautiful story. So, what is like the importance for you, like when you're painting, when it comes to like brushes and paper and paint? Could you talk a little bit about that? Because
Mhm.
when someone's just starting out with watercolor, they're not sure if they want to invest in good supplies.
Mhm.
And because I've seen you do a demo, and I'm gonna put down in the link your demo you did for Daniel Smith. And so, could you talk a little bit about your experience with the materials?
Sure. Like I said earlier that I did not expect, I didn't see myself painting. So much of my watercolor experience is influenced by my husband. So you could imagine me um, starting my journey with professional grade paints right away. And that's because I get my paints, I share paints with my husband. But then husband would always tell me that actually in watercolor, it's more effective or practical to start. I mean, eventually you move on to using professional grade materials like Daniel Smith. And it's primarily because with professional grade paints, you only need a little to go long. What it means, it simply means if I want yellow poppies, for example, or yellow local flower, I only need like a dot, like the dots in our dot card, Daniel Smith dot card, for me to be able to, depending on your style, but for my style, a dot of Hansa Yellow Medium, for example, would let me paint for an A4 size of watercolor. So with professional grade, artist quality, you can safely say, I only need a little for a long journey. I also recall my husband telling me that those who started painting with student grade and then moves up to using artist grade would all the more appreciate the artist grade because you now have a point of comparison. Yeah, you can right away tell the difference if you use a yellow from a student grade brand and then our Hansa Yellow Medium, for example, for Daniel Smith. So it is important. I think the other important point to note is, especially for artists who start accepting commission work, you seriously have to think about your materials so that it stays true to your brand and nobody would come back to you and say, hey, I pay you this much, but then 2 months, 3 months down the road, oh, the yellow there is gone. It has turned to brown. That's a serious situation. Yeah, and you won't be, it will be difficult to recover. And not just for yourself, I think it's more like it's happening here in the Philippines, in fact. We have artists, and nothing wrong with, you use whatever tools you have. But whenever you start accepting commission work, there's monetary involved. So you'd have to give back what it is worth. So there's a situation in the Philippines where in the past, artists does commission work and they didn't use archival materials. They don't use the paints with good light fuzziness. And true enough, there are art collectors who came back and even told my husband that, no, I'm not gonna start collecting watercolor again because I bought a piece from this artist and yeah, it faded. The yellow particularly faded. It's gone or turned brownish. So we don't want that to happen. Yeah.
Do you have a paper preference?
Oh yeah. And when I say this is just made possible because of my husband, who's a professional painter. I've started with Saunders Waterford and Arches, and recently Baohong. I think price-wise for Filipinos, Baohong is more affordable, and quality-wise, it can compete with, based on my experience. They also have the same type of papers like rough, all the hot press, cold press, 300 GSM. They have that, and it's just much cheaper for me because Baohong is from China. Yeah, but I still love Arches and Saunders Waterford.
Yeah, we've just recently been able to get our hands on Bullhong here with Amazon, and there forever. It was like before the pandemic, like no, wasn't gonna happen. And so I was super excited. One of our brand ambassadors, Daniel Smith, was good friends with Bullhong. But then all of a sudden, we're like, I found Bullhong on Amazon, and I looked, and it was like, click here to buy now, and it'll be there tomorrow 6 a.m. And it's cheap. And I was like, whoa, I gotta try it out. Yeah, at least gotta try one package, right? And yeah, it's a good paper. And my friend that's from China, she's like, you really can't tell the difference between the student paper and the cold press. But I really like the rough for sure. But most people want to know this question. And we could come back to brushes. But what do you find most rewarding about watercolor painting?
I remember, honestly, the one who taught me to paint, not my husband, but he helped me further develop my liking with watercolor. I got introduced to the magical effect of watercolor. Uh, she had a workshop. I was with them to help run the workshop, and she just said, "Come sit next to me and let's paint." I said, "No, I don't paint." And she said, "No, just grab a pen, grab a brush, and then I'll show you." So true enough, I sat down, and then she showed me like how you teach an ABC to a little kid. She said, "Okay, you dip the brush onto a glass of water, and then after that, you shape a diamond." So we were supposed to paint a 5 petal flower. Shape a diamond on the paper, and then dip your brush again on your glass, in your glass, and then touch this color, and then you mix, and then paint it on that diamond shape, like water on your paper. I did that. I just followed what she said. And true enough, this is using Daniel Smith, by the way. The moment two layers, I think, I was just really mesmerized to see how the paint moved. It To me it was magical because I've never seen such an action for a color. Um, we call it transparency, like when it starts to dry. That's the other thing that I like. The first one is it looks magical when paint moves with water. It's like a dance to me. So that's always the effect to me. Second thing that I like about watercolor is its transparent, soft effect, very light, pleasant. The transparency to me means you could still see the surface behind. And it feels like you'll you'll hear me using the word magical. It feels like, in those magical fantasy land, you feel like your paint lifted. You see, because you see the surface. So transparency is one. Third is, I love that it is both friendly and unfriendly medium. I say friendly because you don't really have to carry a lot of stuff to start painting. You can even have like our hand half pan, the half pan set, which the size of the set is like your palm size, almost like a kit. I don't have one near me, but it's like you can put it in your palm, and then you have a travel brush. Then you have like a postcard size. You have a postcard. Yeah, not this one, the other one, the half pans in plastic case can fit in your palm.
Oh,
I,
yeah, the little plastic one.
yeah, the size is just perfect for my hand, the palm. And then you put yes. See how portable that is. And all you need is just that palette and then a travel brush, like something like a Skoda's travel brush where you can unscrew and then reduce it to almost like this size. And then a postcard size paper. Yeah, yeah. Your collapsible water container, and you're all good to go. And you don't have to like worry about scent, like the smell of your paint. That's the friendly part. It's very portable. The unfriendly part, I would take it as a beautiful challenge. The unfriendly part is the practice of restraint. Like you do have to allow the color to flow for you to enjoy it. But sometimes you get too excited that you want to like just put a layer even if it's not done, even if you're not done with the first layer yet. So restraint is a challenge with watercolor. Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree with you. And we actually haven't talked about this, how magnificent what paint does. How has watercolor painting evolved over the years? I'm sure you've seen some changes with watercolor.
Mhm. I think I must say that where we are at now, Philippines and even global, there's more appreciation of watercolor as a professional medium. Um, Gone are the days where you'd hear people say that, oh no, it's just for studies, preliminary studies. Unfortunately, it started that way. I'm not sure if this is true across countries, but in Philippines, it started that way. But 5 years, 7 years ago, the landscape, the way, the respect that this medium started to get has since changed. And so now you see more organizations hosting professional druid exhibitions or contests. And I think what helps to this level, what helps the community reach this level is the fact that wonderful companies continue to innovate, like Daniel Smith. What I love about innovation, the innovation that Daniel Smith does, is that, for one, Daniel Smith has the most number of colors available, the premixes. And I know some of my friends would say, well, I can make that green. Like, for example, Hooker's green or undersea green. I can make that green because it says that it is made up of this and this color. But no, I tried. There's just no way that you can get the same beauty that you get from a premix color. So what does it do to an artist's journey? It makes your work, it elevates your work. It makes the job easier because you already have premixes. So that contributed, I suppose, to elevation. It just takes the journey further. That's one. The other one is with water soluble, for example. I remember our dear friend, fellow brand ambassador Bob Tomanovich. He's the first artist who showed us how dynamic these two mediums are, that you can basically paint with watercolor and water soluble oil. And the thing that I like about water soluble and watercolor together is that you don't have to worry about the smell. And I remember during his demo that both, suddenly you see these two different mediums, but they're actually friendly with each other. You just need to have another, the mediums that you have to use just so you can blend it well and it stays, the blending effect stays. So I must say, watercolor is really alive. Like, watercolor art has finally reached a stage where it should be at. It should be the kind of respect it should have finally is here now. And I love the fact that we have many artists like you and our very own John Cogley and fellow artists who are so giving with their knowledge. So that, I think, also helps with the appreciation, a greater appreciation of the medium. Yeah.
I agree. And if you saw me looking all over the place, I was actually finding this. And you can get these.
Watercolor confetti.
Yeah, you can see get this at Blick. And what's really cool, I mean, we talked about dot cards and we talked about, here's this really cool pamphlet that comes in there and it shows these colors and it tells your amazing story with your wonderful face here. And then, but in here, I'm really bad. When I'm at the store, I open the package. I'm like, what's in here, And my wife's like, are you sure you're supposed to be opening that? And I'm the brand ambassador, Daniel Smith. But anyway, so look at these dots. I have a dot card, but these are way
bigger
than the dots that come on the dot card. And you were just saying, you can paint from these. And these are like the big papa and mama of the dots. And so can you explain why this got made and tell us about the cute stuff on the back? Oh my goodness.
So first, I want to say thank you to our Daniel Smith family for the opportunity to be part of this product development. The goal of this set, as it is called, it's watercolor confetti. So it's supposed to bring out that effect of the fun side, easy, light, fun side of watercolor. So inside you have, as Gabrielle mentioned, you have bigger mama, papa dot cards. It's like times 5 the size of the regular dot card. And each of these dot cards, as you can see, there are 4 colors dot cards in every sheet. It suggests a certain mix. And the theme generally revolves around you imagine confetti, all the confetti, different colors. So imagine someone who loves to go to the park or spend time in a coffee shop, for example. This set is perfect because one, the dot card size is really big. And then inside you get how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 suggested color mixes, each different. So for example, here I'm holding, this is gemstones are a girl's best friend. So the colors here includes amethyst, genuine rhodonite, jadeite, amazonite, basically the Primatex. And then at the back there's like suggested activities. For example, this one says gemstones from your jewelry box to your paint box. So very portable. And the other thing that I like is that in one sitting, for example, one sitting could be an hour or two, you can actually explore different mixes, different themes, different moods based on the suggested color combo for each of these 9.
And on some of these, they have the
Oh,
a color wheel or something.
yeah. It says here it's time to mix and mingle. It has that confetti feel with your yellow, red, and blue, and then just accent it with lunar black. So we often hear that lunar black, or I hear it most from more experienced artists here, that if you want to have a cooler or darker shade of the color that you pick, you can actually add a gray, a neutral tint, or a black. But for this mix, it's a unique, it's like a punch, a surprise, beautiful punch. You have the 3 beautiful colors, the basic, you have your yellow, red, and blue, and then suddenly you see a black. So at the back, like I think you're holding this as well. You do the mix and mingle color wheel. It's a good exercise. And I think, as always, our sets like this and the other sets as well, the sets in tubes, it's a great way for you to be introduced to Daniel Smith colors. Like there's 266 colors now, and I know it can be overwhelming to buy. I know of someone who bought all of the colors, but the sets are definitely a good way to acquaint yourself with the Daniel Smith experience. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for telling us about these. I think I picked this up for like less than $4. And it might vary in different places.
And Greg, like just now you showed this, the pamphlet inside. At one glance, I know artists love to swatch their colors, but at one glance through this pamphlet here, yeah, you'll see right away the colors that are included in this box. So yeah, from my end, I see happy colors. I love bright, not super bright, but I love light and bright colors. There's a good mix of them. So Opera Pink is there as well.
Yeah, so this is an awesome innovation. They didn't have anything like this when I was like in high school or college. You had to buy a full tube. This is an opportunity to get how many colors? Like, holy cow, you can get all these colors. I can paint quite a few 4x6 paintings.
There's 9 of these sheets. The color combos, 9. 3, 4, 5.
It's like 36 colors.
Yeah. And then I think it's also good to mention that, so we have the confetti. We also have the other one, which is more on the Primatech Marvels. Do you have that?
I do. But I was gonna save it for Rajat, but here it is.
Yeah.
If you got money to spend, I will put the link for this one for sure. I'll find a link. People can try to find this at a local store or Cheap Joe's or something. But she's talking about this one, and we'll unbox it maybe with Rajat.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it is like I'm a big fan of the minerals.
For those who are still thinking, like wondering what exactly the box is about. So it's one of those innovations that we did as a prompt for art projects, anyone considering, and it's a good way to start your journey with Daniel Smith. So in here, there are 9 inspirational themes, and let me just read this out. So one is very creatively done. So one is gemstones are a girl's best friend. So you think of rhodonite, jadeite, beautiful Primatech colors. And then there's mix and mingle 1 and 2. There's autumn glow. So you have the girl palette, and then suddenly you shift to autumn. And then there's even born to sparkle, which talks about our, not just the Primatech, but any pigments that has the natural shimmer. And then there's add a little sparkle. So there's one that's born to sparkle, more sparkly. And then add a little sparkle. There's granulating fun. Colors of inspiration, which is inspired from our Colors of Inspiration half pan set. And just the perfect colors for flowers. So it's, I think, balance, because it's not just too much flower stuff, but there's also more for the earth tones, like for the autumn glow. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So could you tell us a little bit about the kind of brushes you like to use?
Ah,
Do you like to
I
use flats or rounds?
for the kind of, for my approach, I always find myself with a round brush for my round brush and a mop. And one of my favorite brushes is Alvaro's needle. It's called needle point because it looks like a needle. I could quickly grab one. I could grab my brushes. Hang on.
Yeah, so I will put down in the links. You guys will be able to find these confetti sets. I'll do my best to find it. And I'll also put in the link down here, you can see Ethel's demo she did with Daniel Smith. She did this amazing demo, and you can read more about her and a questionnaire that she did to get to know her. And because each brand ambassador at Daniel Smith has a write-up about them. And if you didn't put 2 and 2 together, or 1 and 1 together and you got 2, Ethel said her and her husband are both Daniel Smith brand ambassadors. So that's pretty cool. They're like a powerhouse team.
Now, I really, just really grateful to Daniel Smith, the family, of course, with the management. They're very generous, and generous in terms of like sharing the experience and platform with artists, regardless of experience. As you can see, we have like a good number of experienced artists, and then newcomers like me from a hobbyist. At first, even I couldn't believe that it was invited to become a brand ambassador, and I honestly hesitated and I had doubt saying yes. But then I realized that watercolor has reached a stage where, and art in general has reached a stage where it is recognized as for everybody. So just like how I discovered watercolor and its effect to me, we'd always say it's therapeutic. I, for one, really finds it therapeutic. And in fact, if I don't know whether you've checked I'm sure you've checked my IG, but I have posts there that's thematic. I started this hashtag, which is called to an audience of one. And what basically it's about is, when I paint for no whatever reason, but when I feel reflective, I think of just me. And I always ask myself, like, if there's nobody watching, would you still do the things that you like to do? And that's how it started, that hashtag on to an audience of one. And so whenever you search for the hashtag to an audience of one, you'd see, I don't know whether someone else is using that hashtag, but you'd see my floral works, which is mostly spotlighting on one flower, and then all the rest are like subdued. That's like to express my view of an audience of one. This, in fact, is like on my profile pic. I did this on my birthday. Yellow, by the way, is my favorite colors. So that's why you see a dominant yellow there. So this is like my kind of flower. And here are my brushes. So we love, by the way, we love Neves. It's an Australian brand by Senior Art. And so for my flowers, I always have these three. So this is a mop. This is Alvaro Casanet's signature mop brush. This is size 00. And just like the function of mop brushes is supposed to let you do good wash because it holds the hair, which is made of krill. It holds good water. But what we like best about Neves brush is it allows you to do details as well. And the other one is this. It's called needlepoint because of see how it looks.
It's like a rigger.
A needle. It is a rigger, but this part is like a needle. You can do beautiful lines with this, but for my case, I actually use this for leaves. And so I will just take advantage of the shape, and you can actually create unique, no similar leaves because of this part, the belly. And then the end point of the leaves will be this part.
Oh, you saying you drop the whole side of the brush on its side?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then of course you would always feel safe with a round brush. This is from Hobby. This is a Skoda. This is size 6. Yeah. And there's another brush that I also love. This is a dagger, also by Neve. It's called Mahogany Kazan Dagger. This is size 1/2. And I saw friends paint waves and water with this. They take advantage of the shape. But I've never learned how to paint waves because I don't do much of waterscapes using this. But what I use this for is for leaves and even petals because of the unique shape. Yeah, these are my go-to brushes. I also have something like yours, like the travel brush, which is generally like round brush. But most of my works, I use just 3 types of brush: a mop brush, a round brush, and a needlepoint. And this one is for special effects. Thanks to Neve.
That's so good. That's so good. Do you what tips would you give to an aspiring artist when it comes to watercolor?
I can only share based on what I discovered and what drawn me most to watercolor. There's really something about water that's therapeutic. It's true. There's something about it that unknowingly makes you relax just by looking at it's kind of like you're suspended so beautifully in time with water. You flow effortlessly, plus the colors. But I think if there's one thing that stops someone from appreciating watercolor, it's the fear of making a mess. It's like, oh no, I think the color didn't come out. I know friends so you tell them, okay, the way to activate watercolor is water. You need water so that the colors would move. But most of my friends, especially those first time to use brush and explore the colors, they painting in general. It is always a neutral platform. So in my community here in Philippines, many a times happen where we gather and with mostly strangers. But think of strangers, you wouldn't really share much about life and your personal stuff, right? But then when you start painting, then you have water there. I don't know, there's just something about it that makes everybody open up. When you're gathered together for that moment of time, you just drop whatever preoccupies your mind. You paint together and then you start to open up. So anyone who wants to try watercolor, all you need to do is just hold a brush and get your brush wet. Get it wet before you touch the colors. Because without water, there is no watercolor fun.
I think that's called charging your brush. You're
Mhm.
dipping
I
it
heard
in there. You're getting
charge your
the
brush.
water, activating the brush. It's like that moment of coming and getting prepared to create.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's such a so those brushes you showed us, are those all synthetic or some real?
Ah, no, real hair. This is real hair. Again, I got my brushes from my husband. So like hand me the brushes. This is real squirrel hair. This is mixed. And this is also synthetic. Yeah.
Mixed, you mean mixed animal or
Blonde,
mixed synthetic and real?
synthetic and real. Yeah.
Okay,
And I love the handle. The handle is made of mahogany. Yeah. It's light. And it feels good to have that feel of like real wood, mahogany wood.
very nice. Some people would like to know what challenges do you face, with watercolor piece and like, what do you say to someone like they say watercolor is the hardest medium?
Oh, I think earlier I mentioned that I feel that watercolor is both friendly and unfriendly medium. Friendly because of its portability. And in other words, you can basically paint anytime with just little tools in your hand. The unfriendly part, it may sound negative, but actually it's not negative. The unfriendliness gives you that opportunity to be up for a challenge. My husband would always say, familiarize it, like how I think there's a famous line by Chinese artist that says watercolor is like taming a wild horse. So you got to familiarize your ways with water and color because it can be tamed. You'll find your way, you'll find your muscle memory, and eventually you get your own style. And I must say it's necessary to learn the basics, like basics as understand the characteristics of watercolor so that you don't end up painting like acrylic style when you have watercolor. Because if you do it that way, you'll never appreciate the beauty of watercolor. So like for my journey, I realized that what works best for me is I always start with light. So when I do my layering, I get my lightest color on, and then you build and you build. Husband would always say, and I observe that best practice is if you worry about control of water and how to avoid getting the muddy look. In other words, not dark color, but muddy, meaning dirty. Secret is clean brush. Clean brush, meaning when you're about to load another layer, you're supposed to clean the brush before you put on a new layer. Because if you don't, then it's chances are it's gonna be muddy. And he would say for his practice, he goes 3 layers to 4, no more, most cases no more than that. My case, I think I'm on 3 just because of the style that I do. And I'm still learning, you know. And I hate it when I say I'm still learning because my husband would always say, you've been painting for 5 years now, and you still say you've never really familiarized yourself with the basics. But I don't really care. Like nobody would penalize you if you're taking some time to learn and be familiar with your own ways. I think the end of the day is just really have fun. And fun begins when you start, like what Gabriel said, you just have to charge your brush with water. That's the very first step. If you don't wet your brush, you don't charge your brush, there's no color at all. Yeah.
Day and age now that some people that are they're wanting to do watercolor and we're seeing a trend of watercolor going up and because I've interviewed some people that are telling us this and flowers are really popular. People like to paint flowers and
Yeah.
what are some other subject matter trends that people they feel comfortable doing flowers, but I mean you get to see the paintings and stuff that people are tagging, putting Daniel Smith art supplies and stuff. Could you give us a little tip on what are other trending subject matters to paint?
Mhm. I do flowers everywhere. You can never go wrong with flowers. I think what unique tags will be what you see from your window. Like this came on, many posts came on for what you see from your window during the pandemic. And I think even if we're now like out of that crazy season, not totally out, but more more openness this time, that would be an interesting subject. Like from your window, you paint what you see. And then we're beginning to see not much yet, but food, like local food or the food on your table. Came across artists who are very good, and I just love the way it's almost like it's real. The color mix, it's just genius. And then the other one would be, we also see lots of architecture. It's one of those commonly used, but unique would be that one would be what you see outside your window, local food or your own food. When I started my journey with the Daniel Smith family, there isn't much tags for pet portraits, but now we see from cats. Started with mostly for dogs, and then now we begin to see cats, and then I'm beginning to see owner of the pet, and then the other one would be kids portrait. There's lots of like adult portraits, but there's a few who started kids portrait. I think it's beautiful to see most of like family members getting portrait, the young ones getting to paint motion. Like, like how dancers do. If there's in a film or a video, if you could, there's a function that would let you freeze or delay or slow-mo. Yeah, it's in my mind. I'm like, how do you paint that? How do you use watercolor to paint motion? That would be an interesting subject, maybe.
I think people should know about your animals and their names.
Thank you. So yeah, we have 3 fur babies, all dogs, and we also have 4 cats. So my dogs are all named after Daniel Smith colors. The first dog we have, she's turning 5 years old this year. She's Moonglow, a Siberian Husky. Why we called her Moonglow? She's black and white, but when we look at her, we just thought that, yeah, it's like it has that glowing effect, more for black, and then you see the white patches. Suddenly we just thought, oh, it's just like moon glow. It's the moon glowing. And then we have Lamp Black. What do we call him, Lamp? Why Lamp Black? Because he's predominantly, the hair is white, and then you have the reverse, black spots, and the black spots are really black. And the third dog is Red Jasper. We call him Red Jasper because of the small patches of brown, which is, to us, it's red, the kind of red that Red Jasper has. So yeah, they're adorable. Our cat is called Sienna. And the other 3 cats, we just call them Uno, Dos, Tres, like because they're all siblings. So we call them Uno, Dos, Tres. Yeah.
Does the rooster have a name?
No, no, but the story of the rooster is that rooster was given to us, supposed to be for like an appreciation gift, and we're supposed to make it into a dish. But then when my husband, he was holding the rooster, no, not rooster, hen, and then she gave it, pointing to me. I just happened to look at the eyes of the hen, and then I just said, no, she won't end up in the kitchen. We're gonna make her as a pet. So she lives across our house. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, rooster, by the way, is a good subject. Chickens.
Oh yeah.
Birds are good painting subjects because you can play with different color mixes. They have no rooster colors are the same. Yeah.
There's one thing that happens where you live, and that's called typhoons. And how does that affect you being an artist?
It can be disruptive, But like the recent one, not recent, but a year ago, that super typhoon that left the entire, mostly Cebu City, Cebu province, um, on state of calamity, and we didn't have power for more than a month. Didn't have, it was very uncomfortable, and it clumped the city. I think for a little while you get shaken because you can't be, and you'd be uncomfortable. But then if you ask me, on that night of the typhoon, right after the typhoon, we went to um the main, like the central part of the city. And so we were parked there. We were hoping to get better signal, but ended up not really good. See, as an artist, I think you as an artist, you're born with an eye uh, that would just appreciate beauty, like easily appreciate beauty, even if you're in a chaotic situation. With my husband in our truck, and we're like, look looking up with the sky, and then I just thought of like, oh, it's good to paint after typhoon. Like you have the shadow of the trees in front of us, and then I would imagine the sky having the colors of one of our Alvaro's gray or Joseph's grays, and then you do a beautiful the trunk and the branches all use grays. So yeah, for a little while you will be shaken because you'll never know whether your roof will just be blown, but you'll find yourself again composed. And artists would always have that advantage, I suppose. You have that eye that appreciates beauty, no matter how little, how chaotic it is. Yeah.
So true. Here in San Diego, we had some big waves that took out some of the beaches, and I'm watching it on the news, and I'm like thinking I'll run down there and go take my easel, and then, but I was seeing guys get knocked over on their electric bicycles, and I was like, oh yeah, my
Oh,
easel would not do okay. But I was like, but I should experience it because it's just something new. And
mm,
but then I would probably be a little shaken up because I would see some stuff like, oh man, that's pretty tragic.
yeah, yeah.
But let's get back to art supplies because I know people, but I feel like people they like to hear stories like yours because
Mm.
someone that is new doesn't necessarily want to learn from a master that's been painting for like
Oh,
50 years. But if they can meet someone and follow someone on their social media that's only been painting a certain amount of time, it kind of makes it like,
relatable.
if you were going up a mountain and you weren't all the way at the top yet, you be 5 miles in, and you look back and you can tell someone, hey, the mile number 2 is hard, but mile number 3 and 4 is easier. It seems a little more attainable. And
Mhm.
so I know that your story is going to speak to people. What is a big mistake that beginners make? I mean, I know we talked about not having enough water with the paint
Yeah.
or having too much water, but what is maybe some other thing? Because if we can help them and accelerate them by saying, hey, you don't want to make this mistake. And what would you say
Mhm.
that would be?
There are two things that I want to share about that point. One would be really important to understand your tools. As a watercolorist, particularly paints and paper, these two brushes, okay, but these two, paper and watercolor, there's some science to it. So, for example, I learned this out of discovery and by hearing my husband and seeing him. If you talk about, for Daniel Smith, for example, you have granulating, high granulating colors. So granulating colors, it's called granulating because you see the pigments, the particles, and why it is so because of the values, like the texture of the paper. So imagine using high granulating paper on a hot press. Hot press has smooth surface, and then you use a granulating, very granulating paint. Chances are you won't get the optimum effect of the granulating paper Maybe for some, and I know of friends who got it really, really wrong and stayed away from Primatech because they said, "Oh, I tried the Primatech on my paper. I tried it on this piece, but no, the pigment just stayed in one corner, only to discover that they actually used it on hot press." So that is important. You use your Primatech or high granulating colors on a rough or cold press, then you will enjoy it because then you see the beauty of how it moves naturally. And you imagine if you want to paint like a rock, and rock, of course, is rough. You have the beautiful texture. So you apply your granulating colors on a rock subject on a cold press. You'll get it like almost like it will just elevate your piece, your rock piece, simply because of the nature of the paints. So that's important. The other one would be mistake is, let's say you started to do your swatch, and true enough, didn't do well because you're just like familiarizing yourself with your muscle memory and how thick, I know how the loading, how heavy the water would be, and then you realize, oh, this is not what I want. They all turn out like all opaque. Nothing wrong with opaque, but with watercolor, you actually have more like a breath of watered down. Like when you swatch, you have the flexibility to get its lightest and its darkest. I'm not talking about dark black. So if it doesn't show the first time you did a swatch, or even when you start to do your layer, don't give up. I think, and I would follow what my husband said, with watercolor, if you want something to pop, but then you realize, oh my gosh, I started wrong. The way to do it is make the surrounding darker. Let's say you have the focal point in the middle and you got the color mix and the layers wrong, but you want to push. But then since you got it wrong, you will just stop. You can decide to stop, but if you want to push, my husband would just say with watercolor, if you want to highlight something, if you want to make it pop, you just make the surrounding dark. So that's the other. Then the third, so I'm adding one more point. The most important is, like nowadays, our usual process is we paint and then the joy of sharing it there on social media, share it to Instagram and Facebook, but then you don't get likers, like 0 or 1 or 2. Don't be discouraged. I came across like friends who, just because nobody liked the post, or like only 2 or less than 10 liked the post, and that's enough to make them stop. No, don't. My husband and I would always think that art, first and foremost, the purpose is for you. It's self-indulgence. So it has to satisfy you first. It's going to be a bonus if the community would like it, if someone would like it, much more super bonus if someone would buy your piece. So I think you got to be clear as to who you are as an artist. Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
easily.
thank you so much for sharing those. Nobody talked about those. Yeah, people shared other things. So that you talked a little bit about commissions and
Mhm.
because some people they only think the only way to make it as an artist is a gallery. What are
Oh,
some other ways that people can display their art or sell their art? Do you have any tips for that?
sure. Again, based on my experience, like I would connect it to my realization that art has really reached a stage where art is for everybody. So, first point I want to make is, when, let's just say you join an exhibition and all the artworks are for sale and then yours not bought, don't be discouraged, because I would always say there's a rightful audience for that piece. And of course, it helps. Like, let's just say someone would approach you and would say, oh, I want to get it, but can I get at a 50% discount? Maybe if you're a starter artist, you'd say yes, yes. But if you've been there doing commissions and then more or less you already have your price, don't go down to like immediately saying, okay, I'll let it go for 50% off, because there's always that rightful owner, or someone who's supposed to collect your paint. I'm speaking out of my experience because I have my own way of florals. And most of the time, I don't really feel comfortable having my artwork hung next to someone who's so experienced. Just because naturally I would feel like, oh no, my work is so amateurish or beginner. But then someone, for some reason, one show here too, it happened twice. A local, it's part of a government's effort to promote local arts. So I said yes. I sent my artwork along with established artists. And to my surprise, someone liked my flowers. So as a form of encouragement, don't feel bad. Don't be sad if ever your artwork was not noticed the first time, the second time, the third time you join an exhibition. And let's just say the rightful owner did not show up. So don't stop painting. In terms of commission, I think what's important is again reflecting on how my husband handles commission works and mine. Thankfully, there are a few who approach me for commission work. I didn't really expect that, Gabrielle, but I think what's really important is you have to stay true to who you are as an author. Gallery, based on experience again, gallery being the gallery owners and managers, they can direct the wave, so they can present a subject that they want to highlight, maybe because of the based on their research. Many inquiries are made about certain subject. So if in case you're someone who's invited to participate, for example, to contribute artwork to a certain gallery, but you feel that you don't have what they like, don't feel bad. It's just telling you that that's not the direction for the season, for the year. Again, stay true to who you are. The last part that I want to emphasize is commission work. Always have paperwork, like agreement form. That is to protect you and to protect your collector. Here in Philippines, we started, my husband and lots of artists, we started to include, even in the certificate of authenticity, you have to have that. On the certificate of authenticity, we even state what brands are used on the piece.
We talked about this with a couple other artists, and yes, you have to do some commissions or teaching in order to survive as an artist. But yes, when you get a chance to paint subjects that you're passionate about and get
Mhm.
to use the colors and
Yeah.
everything in the moment of the magic and magnificence that's going on there, this true beauty comes, because sometimes your critical mind can be saying, oh, is this good enough? They've already
Yeah.
paid me half down. And and so like but what I think people would really like to hear, and now I really know I need to interview Dino. So
Oh,
you can't tell Dino's story, but tell us your story about that wonderful day that you got that you were asked by Daniel Smith
oh,
to be a brand ambassador.
like the word ambassador nowadays, it's a trend. Like who wouldn't want to be associated with a brand like Daniel Smith? But in all honesty, when I was approached, my answer was no, 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 because um I I just felt like I'm not there. I'm not a professional painter. I'm not there. I'm just a hobbyist. I just paint happily, like whenever I feel like painting. But then I got the message eventually, and the message is for brands like Daniel Smith have so much respect for artists from different levels, different walks. Um, I think the key message is if you even claim or want to be a brand ambassador for whatever, whichever brand, firstly you have to be natural about it, like the natural liking, the joy. You don't stage it. You don't do it to seek attention. You don't do it because you want to earn. This is me again, friends. Don't do it because you want to earn mileage. I started my journey like that. I was just really smitten with Primatex and certain colors in DS, and I was just happily painting my discoveries, and that's how it all started. I do florals, not complicated subjects. Why florals? Because I always say you can never go wrong with flowers. Nobody can tell you, hey, your petal here is not perfectly angled. Of course, you talk about shadows and value. That's another level. But I started with the liking of colors, just being able to see, to paint um, petals of flowers and use colors from DS that's almost like in its truest color to the reality. Like I put together, I have images of I painted before where I have my output, and then next to it, I took a picture of the real stuff, like the real flower and my output. And that's like my ultimate goal is if I'm pleased, if I think it looks like the real stuff, the color, the energy it brings, then I'm all happy. And now that I really feel privileged and really grateful that I'm part of a community. I think as an artist, it's important to be surrounded with like-minded individuals because the journey can be lonely, especially if you're very conscious when it comes to sharing. Conscious meaning you're very careful and your steps are very calculated when you prepare your stuff. Nothing wrong with that. I've known of artists who are naturally organized and it's their joy to like spend more time preparing how the table looks like before they paint, before they start recording. But to someone like beginner like me, if you start doing that way, I think it will take up much of your time being conscious about the behind the scenes. Just jump in, activate your brush. You only need this, and then your collapsible or recycled paper cup, activate. Yeah, and then whatever sets, if you have the confetti set, that's good. But any watercolor tube, yeah, that's the beauty of watercolor. It is a friendly medium tools. And if there's one last thing that I want to share is I always believe that artists have bigger roles on earth more than just creating beautiful stuff. Why is that? Because art is a neutral platform. So there are hard topics in life that you just don't have that platform to talk about because different reasons. But with art, nobody could judge you. Art is a universal language. Yeah. So I'm grateful for you and for all the artists that I've had a chance to meet and work with and be inspired by many artists because you do good works for the community and the rest of the world, I guess, especially these days. We need more art than ever. Yeah.
It's so true. You know, everybody has a purpose on this planet. We all have our own fingerprint. Literally, nobody has the same fingerprint. So there's something that each individual person, even the person that's watching this right now, you have something to give to this world. And it could be painting flowers. I don't paint flowers. Ethel does paint flowers and all this stuff, but each and every person can play a music or arrange some flowers to give to someone to brighten their day. And someone that's watching this, I hope you benefited from Ethel. I know she has such a sweet spirit. She's very passionate. And where would people get a hold of you, Ethel? I'll put that information in the description. How can they get a hold of you?
My Instagram is in public profile. They can just DM me if anything that you want to ask about, a follow-up question from today's session with Gabrielle, or if you just want to connect with me and my dogs. Yeah, feel free to send me a direct message. It's Ethel Watercolor with Miss E. I think Gabrielle will just. Are you going to include that?
Yes, I'm going to put it right there. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And you can go and watch some more videos and more interviews that we have if you haven't seen them yet. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.